church. Happy Sunday. So glad y'all are here. I want to welcome you, give you a couple of quick announcements before we get into our worship service together. If you are visiting with us, we're happy to see you. Thanks for choosing to be with us this morning. We'd love to connect with you, and there are a couple of different ways you can do that. You can hop onto the Bible app, the YouVersion Bible app, find us under the events, and fill out some info there. Get us to contact you if you want to learn anything more about us. Or you can go old school, fill out the connection card in the bulletin and drop that in the offering plate or the tithe box at the end of the service. Also want to let you know we take communion at the end of every service, and we invite everyone who's a believer to join with us, even if it's your first time here. Simply take a piece of bread and a cup of juice as they're passed, spend a moment in reflection, and eat and drink when you're ready. Again, we're so glad you're here. Let me tell you a little bit about what's coming up. This weekend is TCTC, the Tennessee Christian Teen Convention in Gatlinburg. If you've got a student that is going to that, they need to be here Friday by 2 p.m. They can drop off their luggage as early as Thursday. I think they will leave the doors open until 9 p.m. on Thursday, so you can drop the luggage off early if you need to. Otherwise, we'll be leaving for TCTC this weekend. Please be in prayer for us. We always have a great group of kids and adults going with us to this convention. It's an opportunity for just thousands of young people to hear the gospel, and we're excited to be a part of that. Ladies, I want to let you know about the Celebrating You Birthday Bash, January 19th at 5:30. Sign up to decorate a table for your birthday month, with the theme being that month. Example, for July, decorate with red, white, and blue. Bring your table settings for 6 to 8 people, plates, glasses, centerpieces, etc. Each table will provide a dessert for that month. We will have a speaker, and we'll be taking donations for the Help with Hope bags for cancer patients. Come join us to celebrate you as we start the new year. Sign-ups are at the welcome desk, and if you need any more information on what to bring for Help with Hope, you can contact Mary Irwin. Again, we're so glad you're here with us. If you would, stand up, say hey to someone in front and behind you, and we'll get ready to enter into the music portion of our worship. I said so many words. Would you sing with us? Heaven thundered, and the world was born. Life begins and ends in the dust you formed. Faith commanded, and the mountains moved. Fear is losing ground to our hope in you. Unstoppable God, let your glory go on and on. Impossible things in your name, they shall be done. Freedom conquered, all our chains undone. Sin defeated, Jesus has overcome. Mercy triumphed when the third day dawned. Darkness was denied when the stone was gone. Unstoppable God, let your glory go on and on. Impossible things in your name, they shall be done. Unstoppable God, let your glory go on and on. Impossible things in your name, they shall be done. Nothing shall be impossible. Your kingdom reigns unstoppable. We'll shout your praise forevermore. Jesus, our God, unstoppable. Nothing shall be impossible. Your kingdom reigns unstoppable. We'll shout your praise forevermore. Jesus, our God, unstoppable. Nothing shall be impossible. Your kingdom reigns unstoppable. We'll shout your praise forevermore. Jesus, our God, unstoppable. impossible. Your kingdom reigns unstoppable. We'll shout your praise forevermore. Jesus, our God, unstoppable. Unstoppable God, let your glory go on and on. Impossible things in your name, they shall be done. Unstoppable God, let your glory go on and on. Impossible things in your name, they shall be done. Oh. Right. Amen. I guess it's been a minute since I've reminded you that when we clap during worship, we know that it's not for us. Like, you're not saying, oh, good job, guys. Like, that's not what, we don't expect that, and we don't want it. It's all for Jesus. So if you feel like you want to clap, even like during the songs, even if you have no rhythm, all are welcome here. I grew up in a household with very little rhythm, but we still had a great time. So you can absolutely worship with freedom here. Raise your hands, sing loud, and clap to celebrate during or at the end of any songs at any point. Let me say a prayer for us as we go into just the rest of our worship time together. Jesus, we're so thankful for that freedom. We're thankful that because of your love, because of your sacrifice, we can come to you with boldness. We can know that you look on us with love and with forgiveness and grace. Because of the grace that you've given us, that you've made us whole and holy, and we can enter your presence. And it's really incredible. We don't have to make sacrifices anymore and seek our own atonement, because you brought that for us on the cross. And we celebrate that today. We pray your blessing over this time. In your name, amen. Before I spoke a word, you were singing over me. You have been so, so good to me. Before I took a breath, you breathed your life in me. You have been so, so kind to me. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Oh, it chases me down, fights till I'm found, leaves the 99. I couldn't earn it, I don't deserve it, still you give yourself away. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. When I was your foe, still your love fought for me. You have been so, so good to me. When I felt no worth, you paid it all for me. And you have
have been so, so kind to me. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Oh, it chases me down, fights till I'm found, leaves the 99. I couldn't earn it, I don't deserve it, still you give yourself away. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Yeah. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. Yeah. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. No. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. No. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear, light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. No. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Oh, it chases me down, fights till I'm found, leaves the 99. I couldn't earn it, I don't deserve it, still you give yourself away. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Yeah.
Amen. We're going to sing a song that we learned together on Christmas Eve, so it may be new to some of you. It's easy to catch on to. Sing this together.
In the darkness we were waiting, without hope, without light, till from heaven you came running. There was mercy in your eyes to fulfill the law and prophets. To a virgin came the word, from a throne of endless glory to a cradle in. Praise the Father, praise three in one, God forever to the King of Kings. And reveal the kingdom coming, and to reconcile the lost, to redeem the whole creation. You did not despise the cross, for even in your suffering, you salvation, Jesus, for our sake you died. Praise the Father, praise the Son, praise the Spirit, three in one, God of glory, majesty of kings. And till that stone was moved for good, for the Lamb had conquered death, and the dead rose from their tombs, and the angels stood in awe, for the souls of all who'd come to the Father are restored. And the church of Christ was born. Then the Spirit lit the flame. Now this gospel truth of old shall not kneel, shall not faint. By his blood and in his name, in his freedom I am free. For the love of Jesus Christ, who has resurrected me. Oh, praise the Father, praise the Son, praise the Spirit, three in one. God of glory, majesty, praise forever to the King of kings. Praise forever to the King of kings. Amen. You may be seated.
I know, right? Welcome to Jefferson City Christian Church. My name is Luke. It's so good to see you guys here this morning. We are going to be starting a brand new series this month, and I'm going to be leading you through this series this month. I'm real excited about it because this particular series has meant so much to me actually over the years. I've taught this particular series this principle that we're going to be talking about for quite a while in my life. I'm excited about it. I was telling somebody what we're going to be talking about is so simple. It's so simple, and you could overlook the simpleness of this series and say, oh man, I've heard this before. This makes so much sense. Yeah, I get that. But don't miss it. Please don't miss it, because this will make so much sense. And then you'll start to, the deeper you start to think about this, the better and better it's going to get for you in your life. And so please join me in this series in kind of breaking this down, the excitement of this series that I'm real excited about. Most people in this, I didn't find this out, but we're kind of like small town here. Most people know that I've been dealing with a little sickness. I had a little sickness on Friday night. And so, yeah, got me up this morning? You. That's right. You got me up this morning, and I'm real excited to be here, but I'm not going to touch you. And that's really for your sake. So if I just pass by, if you don't see me afterwards, it's really for your. You had the power to predict your future. What if you had the power to predict your future? Think about that for a second. Now, when I was younger and we lived in Byrdstown, I used to think that I had a superpower, and it was getting free sodas. Yeah, it was cool because I would go to this little place called the B&K Bestway, and they had a machine, and I had this ability to knock on the machine and a free orange sodas. It was mostly orange sodas. It was really weird. It was always orange sodas. So I would hit the machine, hit the thing, and an orange soda would fall. I thought, that is awesome. And it wasn't one time. It was many, many times. And it's not a cool power, but I thought, as a kid, soda's not bad. And so I thought I had this thing. And you think, well, you're a kid, and kids thinking they have superpowers are kind of weird. But what's interesting is every one of you all probably at some point thought you could predict the future or think you have the power to predict your own future or somebody else's. You know why? You have said this. Should have seen that coming. Anybody here said that? Why did you say that? Well, I should have known the future. I should have seen that coming. Man, I should have seen that. Didn't know it was there, but I should have seen that. And we're serious about it when we say that, don't we? We think about this and we think, I should have seen that coming. Now, maybe you've never said this about yourself, but even though you think you thought you could see your future, or maybe you don't, you have been in the room, they should have seen that coming. You're talking about somebody else. They should have seen it come. Or sorry, this is come up to you and say, oh, he broke up with me. Really? Really? And look, the night before that, they're going to break up. He's going to dump her. Really? You don't like your job? Really? I knew that. Right? You could see they don't like their job. You could see they were going to change jobs. You could see financially. And you talk about it. And the question is why? Why is it that we can't see our own future sometimes, but we should? And why is it that we can sometimes see other people's future and they can't? Why is it actually see it coming, but you don't care? Sometimes you can see the pain or the suffering either physically or financially or even spiritually, and you can see it coming. You know it's coming, but you don't care. Why is that? And that's what this series is going to get to the heart of those questions. Now, before I go on, I should give you some bad news first person. Most personal problems, they can't be fixed. And maybe I'm saying something to you that doesn't sound really uplifting, but that's just the darn near truth of it, is most personal problems in our lives, they really just can't be fixed. Because Michael kind of talked about this last week. The past is in the past. What's happened is happened. And a lot of the brokenness and a lot of the hurt and a lot of the pain, it's already happened. What you have done is what you have done. You can't change that. And a lot of times we want to think of ourselves like a smartphone or a computer. We want to take it back, get it fixed, and come back new, right? My cell phone it had a problem. It said no service on the top left hand. And I looked it up and I thought, oh, these phones have this problem. So I took it to the store. They took it to the factory. They put a new battery in it. They put a new motherboard in it. I couldn't do that. And they gave it back to me. So I got back and it was like having a brand new phone. It worked just like it did before. Wouldn't life be great if we could do that? If we could just go back to the factory, fix it all up, and then come back and it's all new? But here's the thing. You and I both know the truth, right? You and I both know that life doesn't work that way, that sometimes things happen in the past, the pain and the suffering, the hurt is there, and you just can't come back brand new. You're more complex. God knows this. He built you. The Bible says you are beautifully and wonderfully made. You are a piece of work. I'm a piece of work. I'm strategically made. Humans are different than computers, than iPhones. They're different. We are more complex than that. We just can't get broken and come back new, can we? The damage sometime has been done. And that's the bad news. But here's the good news. Most personal problems can be avoided. Most of your personal problems, believe it or not, can be avoided. They can be avoided in life. That's the good news. That is what the heart of this series is. Learning to avoid what can be avoided in the future. So you can have less pain, less suffering in the future. If you could plan, if you could strategically think about this and avoid what's going to happen in the future, that's what this series is all about. That's what we're going to be talking about during this thing, is avoiding the pain and the suffering and the hurt in the future. Because the past is the past. We got to let that go. We got to start today and say, you know what? If I want to avoid these things that I don't want to experience in life, here's what I need to do. That is what the heart of this series. And a principle that I have taught, again, I've taught this principle in other areas of life, but it's called the principle of the path. You need to get that. That's really what the heart of this series is. It's called the principle of the path. And I'm going to talk about this principle. I'm actually going to give this principle at the end of my sermon. And I'm going to tell you what the principle is. But before I get to the end of the sermon and do that, I want to talk about this idea first of the principle of the path. And the first thing I want to talk about is this idea that it is, in fact, a principle. Now, many of us are aware of principles, and I'm going to show you a picture, and let me just see if you recognize this principle. What is that? It is what? Newton's laws of what? That's a principle. The first being what? That and if you're in high school, if you were in college, you learned this principle. It was in 1687. So Isaac Newton, he came up with this three principles called the laws of motion. And the first rule is what? You never, what is an object stays in motion unless. There you go. You got it. There you go. There you go. No, give him a hand. That's good. That's good stuff. Somebody knows what they're doing here. Second one is this, that equation that we learned. Force equals what? Mass times acceleration. For every action, there is a equal and opposite. There you go. There you go. There's a way that we learn these principles in life. Now, and here's the thing that we need to learn about principles, okay? This is the three things I need to tell you about a principle. A principle is not like a rule that you have to follow. We know this, right? Because the rule follows you whether you want it to follow you or not. You're just under the rule. It doesn't follow you around. It's not something you have to follow. It's not something you choose to apply to yourself. That's not what a principle is. You don't choose to follow the laws of motion because the laws of motion apply themselves to you whether you want them to apply themselves to you or not, right? That's not like something we choose to do. It's not a rule we choose to follow. And in 1687, when he posted these for the first time, this is not something he invented, is it? Newton didn't invent the laws of motion. What did he do? He discovered them. He found them out. That's what we do with principles. We see things happening, and then we realize, oh, that's something that I need to learn. Through science, through math, and then we start to say, well, this is a discovered thing. This always was. And what we're going to learn is even 2,000 years, this principle of the path was even talked about by Jesus. So this idea that we're talking about is not something that I'm inventing. It's not something I'm coming up with. It's something that I'm going to just say, this is just a rule we follow. This is something that just applies to our lives. Now, the only people that I'm aware that can break, for example, this law are superheroes from another planet, right? That's the only people that can break this stuff. I mean, Superman can leap tall buildings in a single bound, right? You don't want to try that, or you're going to suffer the consequences of the laws of motion. So we can either choose to follow these things, or we can choose not to. But if we choose not to, we're just going to have to suffer the consequences of the principle. So the first thing is it's a principle. The second thing is this. This path principle is both a geographical and a life principle. That's why we're doing it in church. We always say that we do life series and Bible sermon series. This is very much a life series that we're doing this time. Very much. This is about life. Now, we make the connection geographically very easily with the path principle. When you're somewhere, if you're traveling and you get somewhere and you realize that you're in the wrong place, we have a term for that in geography. What is it called? Being lost. You're lost. And so you realize that when you are lost, you followed a path to get lost, right? Now, it was a wrong path, but you followed a path. And you realized when you were lost, when you realized you were lost, you just had to take another path back to be found, or to get found, or to get to the right place. That's what we realized geographically. You were lost, I need to take another path to get found. It's the same thing in life. If you don't like where you are in life, if you go back, you get to where you should be the same way you got to where you shouldn't have gone. Let me say that again because it could be confusing. When you are lost in life, you get to where you should be the same way you got to where you shouldn't have gone. If you are lost in life, if you're in a place where you're unsatisfied in your life, financially, physically, in your marriage, in your relationship with your kids or your parents, or in your job, or educationally, if you're lost in one of those things in life, You got there by following a path. And now that next slide. So the reality is if you don't like where you are in life, the reality is you're probably going in a wrong direction. You're taking a path that's not right. You're not where you should be. And this is very, very applicable to every area of life that we feel lost, that we feel like we're not right in. Again, whether it be physically, morally, spiritually, any area of your life that you feel lost in, it's probably because you're going in the wrong direction. And wouldn't it be great, because geographically we have a cool thing called GPS, right? GPS just kind of sends us back. We don't have to be lost very long. In fact, usually we're not lost very long. We got this app called Life 360, and if I leave the church, my wife knows it. So if I leave the church and she says, hey, I need some milk, how did you know that? How did you know to ask at that very moment? It's because she saw me leave. I'm on her Life 360 app, right? You set out in your apps, you give them notifications. So if you drive by this place, people know where you are at all times. So we can't really get lost geographically a lot in life, but we do get lost in life. Wouldn't it be great, though, wouldn't it be great if we actually had that GPS thing work as soon as we started making the bad decision? Like you got up in the place and you were going to, oh, he looks cute, and then somebody just slapped you in the face, go back, go back. You didn't even get to him. It's like redirecting, you know? Wouldn't it be great? You thought about purchasing, go purchase that. No. Go back. Don't purchase. Don't go. No. Can't afford it. Don't want it. Get broken. Wouldn't that be awesome in life if we had that? But we don't have that, do we? We purchased it. We dated it. and now we're like, shouldn't have done that. Right? We're lost. How do we get out of that? Well, we got to go in a different direction. So Jesus, interestingly enough, I told you already, speaks into this. And he speaks into this, and this is a parable story that you have heard probably 1,000 times. In fact, there's a song about this, and it's going to be hard not to sing the song as I'm teaching this. But here's the thing. You've heard this parable so many times. You've probably seen it, even if you aren't a believer, even if you are kind of a casual person that doesn't know much about the Bible. You've probably heard this or a version of this story that I'm about to teach. But again, don't get lost in the simpleness of the story. Don't get lost in what Jesus is saying here. Because Jesus tells this story, or a parable, I believe it's a parable probably, at the end of a sermon that he taught in Matthew chapter 5 through 7. He taught this sermon, popular in church, we call the Sermon on the Mount, or the Sermon on the Mountain, because he taught it on a mountain. And so we call it the Sermon on the Mount, or the Sermon on the Mountain, because he taught these principles, okay, this life application all through this sermon. And he goes back to this many times in his ministry. But this was at the very beginning of his ministry, 5 through 7, Matthew chapter 5 through 7, and he teaches all of these principles based off of his understanding of the Old Testament and what he's helping them understand about this new way of looking at the law. Not a new law, but a new way of looking at it. And so he goes through this whole thing, and at the very end, he tells this story. And he starts it like this: therefore. Now, little Bible nods for you. If you ever see that word therefore, you need to go before that and see why it was therefore. Okay? You need to backtrack a little bit, and you need to read the verses prior to that, or maybe even a chapter before that, and read why he's saying that was therefore. Okay? So he sums up why 5 through 7 is therefore, and he sums it up like this: therefore, anyone who hears these words of mine and puts them into practice. We got to stop there. Anyone who hears these words of mine and puts them into practice. In other words, what I just explained to you, all of these teachings that I explained to you, are not simply to make you feel guilty and bad about yourself or better about yourself. That's not the point of my message. And a lot of times we go to church for that, right? We go to church, we sit down, and the preacher says something, we go out of the church and say, boy, that really convicted me. That hurt me. And we feel like that's good, right? I mean, we want to be hurt, right? And sometimes that's why we feel like we need to come to church, is just to feel bad about ourselves and go home. And then we'll get that next week, right? Or we feel very convicted. But Jesus said, no. My words are not simply to convict you or make you feel better or worse about yourself. My words are to be put into practice. Whatever I'm saying needs to be acted upon. That's why they were there. That's why I put them there. So whatever I'm saying is there for a reason. And then he goes in to a story about, and as I tell this story, as I read through these verses, I'm going to pick them apart a little bit. But the reason you need to understand that I'm picking these apart a little bit is to help us understand the way that Jesus is teaching this. And I feel like by doing it, it'll help us understand it a little better. And so basically what he starts with is like, everyone who hears these words and puts them into practice is like a wise man who built his house on the rock. But everyone who hears these words of mine and does not put them into practice is like a foolish man who built his house on the sand. Now, what Jesus is doing right off the bat is he uses the term built. This idea that we're building something. We're building something. And the next thing that he does is saying, well, basically he's saying this: building or rebuilding your life, it requires a process. It requires a process. That's what building does. And then he goes on to say, and there was a foolish way of doing things, and there's a wise way to build your life. And so that's what he goes on to say in these things. So the first idea is that we build by using a process. And he says this about both the wise man and the foolish man. So they're both using a process. They're both building or rebuilding their lives. They're just doing it very differently. Now the wise man, and this is what we're going to talk about, the wise man versus the foolish man. The wise man understands that what they were hearing is he built it on the rock. Or in other words, if you realize you build something on rock, they would understand that as it takes time. It's a process that takes time and energy. The foolish man doesn't see it that way. They want to get something quick. That's what the foolish man's saying. I added a room to my house this summer, okay? And I called in a lot of favors to a lot of different people in here. But here's what I learned, because there was concrete on the floor, and when I realized that you have to be very level when you're doing that. So you have to measure it out, and you have to be precise, or your walls are going to look wanky. That's a technical term. But they have to be straight. Everything has to be straight. Your boards have to be straight, or the sheetrock doesn't look right. And even if the sheetrock looks wrong, you can get it to a certain point, and you're going to have to call somebody to fix all your mistakes, because all your mistakes are glaring if you do it the wrong way. And here's the worst thing I did is I looked at my wife and I said, yeah, I think that's going to be done in a couple weeks. Any men make that mistake? No! No. There's a process here to building on a rock, because building on a rock is harder than building on the sand. It's more difficult. It takes time. It takes precision. It's a process. It doesn't take 2 weeks. It takes a summer and maybe a little more. Okay? I'm just saying. It takes some time because it's a process. And anyone who's built anything knows this, that builds it the right way, right? Now, the person who built they want the quick fix. They want the unwise thing. I fixed my toilet. Now, that's unwisely, okay? Because I was having a leak in my toilet, so I thought I would fix the back of the toilet. So I undid the toilet, and I thought, I'm just going to fix it the same way it was fixed, because I bought like this thing that went in the back, and I built it, and then the plumber, we kept having leaks, and I was wondering why we kept having leaks, and we called the plumber, and the plumber just laughed at me. I wasn't there at the time. But I think he took a picture and he sent it to his buddies and said, look what this doofus did. And basically, it was still leaking. And the reason that it happened is that the thing that I put in the toilet came with directions. And I said, I put in a toilet before. Come on. Why use the directions? I'll just put it back like I had it. That was dumb. Now, it got done in half the time. But our water bill would say otherwise. That's the reality. That's what happened when I did it the quick way. And the people who build their life the quick way, they just want a solution to life. They just want somebody to tell them the 5 steps. I'll do the steps. We'll get it done. We'll get it over with, and then we'll get back on track. If I have a problem in my life, just tell me what to do. Give me a solution, and then the solution will be happy. Because sand, you can do that really quickly. You can level it out. If you have a little mistake here, you can fix it by doing this. So that's how we kind of look at it when we want to build our life, with just a solution. We don't want to take the time and understand that it takes time to have a good relationship with our friends and our family. It takes time to have a good relationship with our spouse. It takes time to build financial freedom in our lives. That takes time. All of these things take time in our life. But a lot of times we don't want to take time. We just want the quick fix. I got to lose 15, 20 pounds. Give me the pill. Exercise, eating right. I don't want to, just give me something to medicate me. Please. I want to deal with all that other stuff. I don't have time for it. So we want a quick solution. That's how unwise people live. Here's the second thing, is that life is connected. That's what the wise person understands, that life is connected. The foolish person doesn't connect life. They don't connect this. In other words, what I'm trying to tell you is, and we're going to talk a lot about this next week, so I'm not going to hang on this one point very long, but I want to get it out there. Your past connects your present, which impacts your future. Your past connects your present, which impacts your future. A wise person understands that whatever's happening right now in their life didn't just happen. It was based off a lot of choices that they made prior to that. The wise person can look back, and their first question is, how do I correct that? I'm going to evaluate this and do it right, because I didn't do it right that first time. And the reason that I am where I am right now is because I'm not where I should have been. So how can I fix that? And whatever decision that I make at this point in my life is going to be my past eventually. So I don't want to look back on this moment and say I did the wrong thing. So I'm going to make good choices. I'm going to get the good information. I'm going to do it right this time, and then my future will be better. So they understand that what I did leads to where I am, and what I'm doing leads to where I'm going. Now, the person who doesn't want to deal with all that, their solution is very different. They say, well, the past is in the past. And the easiest solution is just to get a new whatever. You just reboot, kind of like a computer or an iPhone. We'll just reboot it, right? So if I don't like the relationship I'm in, I said, don't like it. I'll get a new date. I'll just date somebody else. If that one doesn't work out, I just date somebody else. If I get married and it doesn't work out, just marry somebody else. Just boom, boom, boom. And obviously it'll get better, right? If I don't like where I am financially, I'll just get another credit card and we'll start over, right? We'll just refinance. We'll just do it again. If I get in financial troubles again, I'll just do it again, right? We just think a lot of times that we can solve problems by just getting a new. If I don't like where I am in life, I'll just move out west and go to a camp and find myself. We just go out west, right? We'll go to the mountains. That's what the people out west are doing, by the way. The people out west are going to Appalachia. They're going to the Smoky Mountains, and we're going to the Rocky Mountains to find ourselves. We're just going to find ourselves in different places, right? Because we got to find ourselves. Because a new location, a new job will help out, right? But here's the thing that we don't understand. Anywhere you go in life, you happen to bring you with you. That's the biggest connection you got to make. You bring you with you. And you were the one that put you in the situation that you're in, right? Anywhere you go in life, it doesn't matter if you get the new relationship. It doesn't matter if you get the new job. It doesn't matter if you refinance. Anywhere you go in life, you bring you with you. And if you put yourself there, you're going to put yourself back there if you don't stop and evaluate your life. Where did this come from? Why did this get here? How did this happen? I'm in a wrong direction, and I need to go back. And then Jesus does something that I'm so appreciative of. This is why I think it makes much sense to be a Jesus follower. Because what the next thing that Jesus does here is he tells us about the facts of life. And he doesn't candy coat anything. He says, listen, the rain came down and the stream rose. and the winds blew, and they beat against the house. And we have to understand that Jesus applied this to both the wise man and the foolish man. Jesus didn't say the rain came down only on the foolish. And he's telling us, listen, life will eventually come and problems will arise. And we need to understand that. Because here's the thing about storms. Here's the things about issues, and the storms are unexpected storms, expected storms and unexpected storms. Storms really, they highlight where we are in life. If we're in a bad spot, a storm will magnify that. So if you're in a bad relationship and you have bad problems, it will only magnify the problems. If you're in a job and your job is having problems and your workplace is having problems, whatever problems are that led to that bigger problem are going to become even more magnified. And in life, anytime you go through a storm or a rough time, anytime that happens, and it's going to happen to the good and the bad, the wise and the unwise, what Jesus is saying is that's when our life is going to be magnified, where we are. It's going to highlight our spot, and it's going to show us where we are. And so Jesus says the rain came down, and it beat on the house, and then it talks about the wise man. The rain came down, the streams rose, and the winds blew and beat against the house. Yet it did not fall. The wise man's house did not fall. Why? Because he was lucky. You ever thought that? You ever thought, man, bad things just don't happen to those people? Or have you ever seen somebody in financial trouble? It's like, oh, only bad things happen to that person. They just keep getting in bad debt. They just keep having bad things happen. Things just keep breaking down. Things just keep out. Why are they always having these issues? Why are they always having these problems in life? Why are they always having these fights? Why are they always having the problems at job? Is it just they're just always unlucky in their job choice? Is it always unlucky with the people they choose? Is it always unlucky with the way they handle these? Is it just bad luck? No. Because the rain came down, and the streams rose, and the winds blew against that house, the wise man's house, and it didn't fall. Why? Because he built his foundation on the rock. Because he did it the right way, the wise way. He took time, he evaluated his life, he listened to the words, he acted on these words, and when troubles came, because they will, his life turned out very differently than the foolish man. Because the foolish man, the rain came down, and the streams rose, the winds blew, and beat against that house, and it fell. And it fell with a great crash. And that's hard to watch, isn't it? You ever seen that? You've experienced it, but it's even harder to watch. It's hard to deal with in your life. If you have kids and you're watching it, and you're like, oh, you just hate it. You hate to watch that with your friends. People hate to watch you go through these things. But here's the bottom line. If you want to avoid painful outcomes, you have to follow the path of the wise. You have to follow the path of the wise man. That's the only way. And it isn't easy, and it isn't quick, and it takes some time, maybe even some sacrifice, but it's right. And when the storms come down, and when the problems come, you're going to be so thankful you're on that path. And the Bible says that when he finished saying these things, the crowds were amazed at his teaching because he taught as one with authority, not as their teachers of the law. Let me just interpret that for you, because he just made sense. He just made sense. He told them like it was. It's not something to do to gain more like prestige. You weren't following this to be guilty or to guilt you to give. That's not why he was doing that. He was doing it to prepare them for life because he cared about them. So this is the path principle. Your direction will always determine your destination. Your direction determines your destination every time. It's true in geography. It's true in life. Anywhere you are, your direction will always determine your destination, and we have to understand that. And listen, geographically, we may lose 30 feet. We may be late to that function that we should have been to because we took a wrong turn, and it take a while to get back on the right track, and we may be an hour late, okay? It could happen. But here's the thing. In life, you can lose your 20s. You can lose your 20s. You can lose your 30s. You can lose a decade. You can lose your spouse. You can lose your kids. You can lose your family, your work. And this is serious stuff when this happens. And when you see this happen, man, let me just tell you, I was in youth ministry for 20 years, and one of the big reasons I want to come up here is because I realized if I want to get these kids straight, I got to talk to the parents. Because the parents impact the kids more than the church does. And we got to understand, we have such a responsibility to lead in the right direction, in the right path, the people who are with us. And it breaks my heart when I see people going through struggles and pain because they're going in the wrong direction. It hurts me. And it hurts your Heavenly Father too. And if our servers would come forward now, this is what leads us into this time, because Jesus saw us going in a bad way. Jesus saw the outcome in our lives. He saw that only one thing could get us back on the right track, and it was the cross. It was his death. It was his burial. And that was the only way back. So he did it for you and for me to provide a path back to God. I pray that you would understand this path, that you would know this path through Jesus Christ. Because it's only through Jesus that we get to God. And that's what we remember every week. Let's pray. Father, we thank you for leading us in sacrifice, for leading us in doing the right thing. So, Father, as we spend this time reflecting on that, Father, let us reflect on our own lives and ask the question, what do we need to do to go back? What do we need to do to take advantage of the path that you've laid out for us? It's in your Son's name.